Commander Kael'thas's claws scraped against the tactical display as the extraction beacon activated 14 hours early. "Impossible," he hissed, his secondary eyelids flickering in disbelief. The frozen death trial didn't end early. Cadets either completed the full 20-hour endurance test or their emergency beacons triggered when core temperatures dropped to lethal levels, usually within 6 hours. The human's beacon wasn't an emergency signal. It was a completion signal. "Sir, the retrieval team has visual confirmation," Lieutenant Vexia reported, her voice tight with confusion. "Cadet Thompson he's walking toward the extraction point, under his own power." "That's impossible. Check the environmental readings again." -47 degrees Celsius, sir. Wind speeds at 70 kilometers per hour. Visibility near zero. She paused, her reptilian features creasing in bewilderment. "Sir, his thermal signature is reading higher than when he entered the trial zone." Kael'thas felt his blood chill, and unlike the human apparently thriving in sub-zero conditions, his species actually could freeze to death. "Higher? The equipment must be malfunctioning." "Cross-checked with 3 separate sensors, Commander. His core temperature has increased by 0.7 degrees. And, sir," Vexia's voice dropped to a whisper, "he's carrying something. Something large." The commander pulled up the live feed from the retrieval shuttle. Through the swirling snow and ice, a figure emerged from the blizzard. Daniel Thompson, human cadet. Classification: mammalian endotherm. Species profile: largely unknown. He was wrapped in what appeared to be animal hides, crude but effective, layered across his shoulders and torso. Blood, frozen into dark crystals, stained the improvised garments. In his arms, he carried the butchered carcass of a Glacian tunnel beast, one of the apex predators native to the ice moon. The human was smiling. "Get him to medical immediately," Kael'thas ordered, his mind racing through protocols that suddenly seemed entirely inadequate. "And notify Galactic Command. We have a Class 7 anomaly." The medical bay erupted into controlled chaos as Daniel Thompson was ushered through the decontamination field. Chief Medical Officer Rylea approached with her scanner array extended, prepared for the worst. The frozen death trial had claimed 3 cadets this training cycle alone. Survivors typically required immediate intervention: thermal restoration chambers, cellular regeneration, psychological stabilization. Thompson set down the frozen carcass with a heavy thump and began unwrapping the furs. "Cadet, please remain still while I—" Rylea stopped mid-sentence, her scanner emitting a confused chirp. "Your epidermal layers are intact. No crystallization, no necrosis, no frostbite markers whatsoever." "Yeah, I got a bit cold at first," Thompson said, pulling off what appeared to be mittens fashioned from animal skin and sinew. "Made these after the first couple hours. Huge difference." "A bit cold?" Rylea cycled through her scanner's diagnostic modes. "Cadet, you were exposed to conditions that should have rendered your tissues non-viable within 90 minutes. Your species profile indicates susceptibility to temperature extremes." "I mean, it was definitely chilly," Thompson admitted, rubbing his hands together. His fingers were pink and healthy, showing no signs of reduced circulation. "Nothing like the winter I spent in Nunavut, though. That was rough." Rylea turned to her assistant. "Run a full metabolic panel. Cross-reference with the xenobiology database. Something is fundamentally wrong with our understanding of human thermal tolerance." Thompson glanced at the dead tunnel beast. "Hey, is there a kitchen on this station? This guy put up a good fight, but the meat should be fantastic. I can show you how to properly butcher it if... You hunted that creature? Rilia's voice rose an octave. Glacian tunnel beasts are classified as megafauna predators. They're apex hunters in one of the most hostile environments in charted space. Well, yeah. I got hungry after about 8 hours, and I figured sitting around waiting wouldn't help. Tracked him back to his den, waited for the right moment, and... Thompson made a jabbing motion. Sharp rock to the throat, quick and clean. The medical bay fell silent except for the rhythmic beeping of monitoring equipment. You created a weapon? Lieutenant Jitaro stepped forward from where he'd been observing. As the Academy's chief survival instructor, he designed the frozen death trial personally. From what materials? Rocks and ice, mostly. Found some good flint-like stone near an outcropping. Napped a decent hand axe and a couple of cutting tools. Thompson spoke as if describing a casual hobby. The sinew from the tunnel beast made for good cordage. Oh, and I got a fire going after I found some dried vegetation in a cave system. Kept me toasty. Fire? Jitaro's mandibles clicked in agitation. Cadet, the atmospheric composition of that moon contains insufficient oxygen to sustain combustion. Fire is impossible. I mean, it worked fine. Thompson shrugged. Took a while to get started with the bow drill method. But once I had coals going, I could maintain it with the right fuel. You've got to understand fire dynamics. Temperature, fuel load, oxygen flow. Basic stuff. Rilia's scanner finally completed its analysis. The results made no sense. Commander Kael'thas, you need to see this immediately. Within the hour, the station's conference room filled with the Academy's senior staff. Commander Kael'thas stood at the head of the table, reviewing the medical data with growing disbelief. Beside him, Thompson sat casually in a chair designed for species with entirely different skeletal structures, eating what appeared to be a ration bar. Explain this to me again, Kael'thas said slowly. Your internal temperature increased during exposure to lethal cold? My body was working hard, so yeah, I warmed up a bit, Thompson said between bites. That's how thermogenesis works. You burn calories, generate heat. Pretty standard mammalian response. Standard? Professor Zylar, the Academy's foremost expert in environmental survival, activated his holoprojector. Cadet Thompson. I have personally trained over 4,000 cadets from 173 species over my 40-year career. Not one has ever described active heat generation as standard. When exposed to cold, biological systems conserve energy and reduce metabolic activity to survive longer. That sounds like a great way to freeze to death, Thompson observed. It's a great way to survive until rescue, Zylar corrected. Metabolic suspension extends viability windows. Generating heat during cold exposure would exhaust energy reserves and accelerate death. Thompson paused mid-chew. Wait, are you guys all cold-blooded? The room erupted in confused chittering and hissing. Define your terminology, Kael'thas demanded. Ectothermic? You regulate temperature based on external environment rather than internal processes? Thompson looked around the table with sudden understanding dawning in his eyes. Oh, that explains so much about the climate controls on this station. Humans are not ectothermic, Rylea asked. Hell no, we're endothermic, warm-blooded. Our bodies maintain a constant internal temperature regardless of external conditions, within reason anyway. When it gets cold, we shiver, burn more calories, and generate additional heat. When it's hot, we sweat to cool down through evaporative cooling. The silence that followed was profound. Professor Zylar finally spoke, his voice hollow. You're telling me that your species actively fights environmental temperatures? Constantly? At all times? Yeah, it takes a lot of energy, but the advantages are worth it. We can stay active in a huge range of temperatures, hunt in cold weather, travel at night, function in extreme climates. Our ancestors evolved during ice ages, so we got pretty good at the cold survival thing. Ice ages? Lieutenant Vexia pulled up Earth's geological record. Your planet has experienced multiple extended periods of global glaciation? At least 5 major ones that we know of. The most recent ended about 12,000 years ago. Average global temperatures dropped by around 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Ice sheets covered most of the northern continents. Thompson said it as casually as someone discussing yesterday's weather. Humans survived the whole thing, actually thrived during it. Some of our best evolutionary adaptations came from Ice Age selection pressures. Fleet Admiral Zelax, who had been silently observing via holoconference from the command carrier, finally spoke. Cadet Thompson, are you telling me that your species considers frozen wastelands to be survivable environments? Survivable? Sir, humans colonize them. By choice. We have permanent settlements in some of the coldest places on Earth. Antarctica, the Arctic Circle, Siberia, northern Canada, millions of humans live in sub-zero climates year-round. We build cities there. We call it home. The Admiral's image flickered as he processed this information. The frozen death trial was designed to test maximum endurance in hostile conditions. It's killed 3 cadets this cycle alone. You're describing it as, what? An inconvenience? I mean, I wouldn't want to do it every day, Thompson admitted. But 14 hours in -40? That's harsh, but manageable. I've been colder during winter camping trips. The trick is staying active, maintaining your core temperature, and getting calories in. That's why I hunted. Needed the protein and fat to keep my metabolism running. Professor Zelar's claws trembled as he manipulated his data display. This changes everything. The entire theoretical foundation of the frozen death trial is based on ectothermic physiology. We're testing the ability to enter metabolic suspension and conserve energy until extraction. But for an endothermic species... He trailed off, his voice strained. For an endothermic species, the trial isn't testing survival. It's testing comfort. I wouldn't go that far, Thompson protested. It was definitely uncomfortable. I'd give it maybe a 4 out of 10 on the hardship scale. What? Commander Kael'thas asked very carefully. Would rate a 10? Oh, you know. Prolonged exposure without shelter, inadequate caloric intake, wet conditions causing heat loss. Hypothermia is the real killer, not just cold. Or extreme altitude with reduced oxygen. That's brutal. Summiting Everest-level stuff. Lieutenant Jitaro pulled up Earth's geographic data. Mount Everest, 8,849 meters. Atmospheric pressure approximately 1/3 of sea level. Temperature -36 Celsius at summit. Death zone classification due to oxygen deprivation. He looked at Thompson. Humans climb this mountain? Thousands of them. It's a pretty popular challenge, actually. Dangerous, but people do it for sport. For sport, Jitaro repeated flatly. Well, yeah. We like pushing boundaries, testing ourselves against nature. It's kind of our thing. Fleet Admiral Zelax called an emergency session of the Academy Board within 6 hours. The holographic conference chamber, filled with the translucent forms of military leaders, xenobiologists, and strategic analysts from across the Galactic Coalition. The mood was tense. Let me ensure I understand the situation correctly. Council member Talana began, her ancient voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of military service. We have been evaluating an endothermic species using assessment protocols designed exclusively for ectothermic physiology. That appears to be the case, Counselor, Admiral Zilax confirmed. Our entire environmental hazard classification system is fundamentally incompatible with mammalian endotherms. What we consider lethal cold environments may actually represent advantageous conditions for humans. Dr. Sinara, the Coalition's chief xenobiologist, projected her findings into the shared data space. I've been reviewing Earth's evolutionary record. Humans didn't just survive ice ages, they became the dominant species during them. While other large mammals went extinct, humans developed sophisticated tool use, complex social structures, and technological advancement specifically to thrive in frozen environments. They invented clothing, controlled fire, built insulated shelters, and developed persistence hunting techniques that allowed them to exhaust prey over long distances. Persistence hunting? Commander Kael'thas asked. Humans would chase prey for hours or even days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion and hyperthermia. Sinara explained. Because humans can regulate their body temperature through sweating, they could run in conditions that would overheat other species. They quite literally ran their prey to death. An uncomfortable silence settled over the conference. There's more, Sinara continued. Humans colonized every terrestrial environment on their planet, from equatorial jungles to Arctic tundra, from sea level to extreme altitude. They're environmental generalists to a degree we've never encountered. The temperature range in which they can operate effectively spans over 100 degrees Celsius. That's impossible, someone muttered. I watched the human make fire on an ice moon with insufficient atmospheric oxygen. Professor Zylar said quietly. I'm no longer certain what qualifies as impossible where this species is concerned. Council member Talana manipulated the shared display, pulling up strategic maps. Admiral, show me our current cold environment installations, ice mining operations, polar research stations, frozen moon outposts. The map populated with hundreds of red markers, each representing a coalition facility in extreme cold environments. Every single one was classified as hazardous duty, requiring specialized equipment, limited deployment rotations, and significant logistical support. Now, show me casualty rates at these installations over the past decade. The statistics appeared. Thousands of deaths, primarily from equipment failures, exposure incidents, and environmental accidents. Humans could potentially staff all of these facilities. Talana said slowly, with minimal environmental support indefinitely, and consider it comfortable duty. Not just staff them, Admiral Zilax added, pulling up Thompson's mission footage. Watch this. The hologram showed Thompson tracking the tunnel beast through the blizzard. He moved with fluid confidence, reading the environment, interpreting tracks in the snow, making strategic decisions about approach vectors. When the creature attacked, Thompson rolled with practiced ease, using the animal's momentum against it, striking with his improvised weapon at exactly the right moment. He's hunting, Jotaro breathed. In an environment we classify as instantly lethal, during a blizzard we'd consider mission prohibitive. He's actively hunting megafauna predators. Now, consider this tactically, Admiral Zylax said. Ice world insertion, frozen moon operations, Arctic naval theaters. We've always classified these as secondary priorities because they're so costly in personnel and resources. But for humans, they'd be force multipliers in environments where conventional forces can't operate effectively, Talana finished. Admiral, what else do we not know about human capabilities? I'm beginning to suspect we know very little, Counselor. Their initial assessment was conducted using standard coalition protocols. Protocols that, as we've now learned, may be entirely inappropriate for their physiology. Dr. Sinara projected a new analysis. I've been reviewing the human anatomical and physiological data we collected during their admission to the Academy. With our new understanding of endothermic biology, I'm seeing capabilities we completely missed. Their cardiovascular system is extraordinarily robust, necessary for maintaining temperature regulation. Their caloric requirements are high, but that's because they're literally burning fuel to generate heat constantly. Their muscular efficiency, their endurance capacity, their ability to function in variable oxygen conditions. All of these traits make sense when viewed through the lens of Ice Age evolution. How many humans are currently serving in the Coalition military? Someone asked. 17, Admiral Zillax replied. Earth joined the Coalition only 3 years ago. They're still in the integration and assessment phase. 17 endothermic predators who evolved to hunt megafauna in frozen wastelands. Talana mused. And we've been evaluating them as if they were standardized ectothermic species. How many have we inadvertently failed in assessments? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Back in the medical bay, Daniel Thompson had finally been cleared for release after the most thorough xenobiological examination in Academy history. Commander Kale Thas found him in the commissary, eating what appeared to be his 4th meal in 3 hours. Cadet Thompson, a moment of your time. Of course, sir. Thompson gestured to the seat across from him. Want some tunnel beast? I convinced the kitchen staff to try preparing it. Tastes kind of like venison, actually. Little gamey, but good. Kyle Thas seated himself, studying the human with new appreciation. I've just concluded a 6-hour emergency conference with Coalition Command. Your performance in the frozen death trial has prompted a comprehensive review of our environmental assessment protocols. I hope I didn't break anything important, sir. On the contrary, you've revealed dangerous gaps in our understanding of species-specific capabilities. We've been operating under the assumption that extreme cold represents a universal hazard. For your species, it appears to be merely an inconvenience. Thompson paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. Sir, I don't want to give the wrong impression. It was cold. It was dangerous. Just because humans can survive those conditions doesn't mean they're fun or easy. You described it as a 4 out of 10 on your hardship scale. Well, yeah. I've been through worse. Most humans have, honestly. We're not special. We're just adapted for it. That adaptation, Kelthas said carefully, is exactly what makes you special. Cadet, how would you like to participate in a specialized training program? We have several installations on ice worlds that are chronically understaffed due to environmental hazards. Your expertise in cold weather survival could prove invaluable. Thompson's eyes lit up. Like teaching other cadets, showing them human cold weather techniques? That, and potentially developing new protocols specifically designed for endothermic species. You're the first of your kind we've properly evaluated in these conditions. There may be others, not humans, but other warm-blooded species, who could benefit from approaches based on active temperature regulation rather than metabolic suspension. I'd be honored, sir. Though I should warn you, a lot of human cold weather survival is pretty low-tech. Making fires, building shelters, crafting clothing from available materials. Not exactly advanced military tactics. Kyle-Thas thought about the tunnel beast carcass, the hand-napped weapons, the improvised furs. Cadet, I've come to realize that what you call low-tech represents thousands of years of refined survival expertise that our species never needed to develop. We're not too proud to learn from masters. Thompson grinned. Well, when you put it that way, yeah, I can teach people how to not die in the cold. Might be fun. One question, though. You mentioned experiencing worse than the frozen death trial. What specifically constitutes a 10 out of 10 hardship scenario for humans? Thompson considered this, chewing thoughtfully. Probably something like sustained desert survival with no water, or deep ocean pressure exposure, or maybe prolonged zero-gravity deconditioning. Or, he added with a slight smile, trying to run a marathon in extreme heat and humidity. That'll kill you real fast if you're not careful. We're good with cold, but extreme heat is where our cooling mechanisms can get overwhelmed. Noted, Cadet said, making a mental note to review the Academy's desert survival protocols with new scrutiny. Is there anything else about human environmental tolerances that might surprise us? Let's see. We're persistence hunters, so we can jog for hours without stopping. We can sprint pretty well too, though not as fast as some predators. We're decent climbers, good swimmers, and we can hold our breath for a surprisingly long time with training. Oh, and we're really good at throwing things accurately. It's a hunting adaptation. Some humans can throw objects at over 150 kilometers per hour with precision. Each new capability was filed away in Cadet' mind, adding to a growing picture of humanity's potential role in the coalition. Thank you, Cadet. You've given me much to consider. 3 weeks later, the Academy's training protocols underwent the most comprehensive revision in its 200-year history. New classification systems were implemented: endothermic versus ectothermic, environmental advantage assessments, species-specific hazard evaluations. The frozen death trial was redesignated: lethal for ectothermic species, moderate challenge for endothermic species, potential training ground for humans specifically. Daniel Thompson found himself leading a specialized seminar on cold weather survival, teaching 15 cadets from 8 different species about fire building, shelter construction, and caloric management. Most of his students were fellow endotherms who had been assessed under inappropriate protocols and nearly washed out of the program. The key thing to remember, Thompson explained, demonstrating bow drill fire starting to a group of fascinated Vexian cadets, is that you're not fighting the cold. You're managing your relationship with it. Humans spent hundreds of thousands of years developing technologies to thrive in frozen environments. This isn't about being tough, it's about being smart. In the observation deck above the training facility, Commander Cadet watched alongside Fleet Admiral Zillax, who had made a rare personal visit to the Academy. The humans right about one thing, Zillax said quietly. They're not special because they're tough. They're special because they're adaptable. They looked at environments that would kill them and thought, how do we make this livable? Instead of, how do we avoid this? It's a fundamentally different approach to environmental challenges. Cadet agreed. Most species, including ours, evolved to optimize for specific environmental niches. Humans evolved to be environmental hackers, I suppose. They break the rules through technology and creativity. And when technology fails, Zillax noted, gesturing to where Thompson was teaching cadets to nap stone tools, they fall back on techniques that are 40,000 years old and still effective. Sir, I've been meaning to ask, the strategic implications of human cold weather capabilities. Have we begun implementation? Quietly, yes. We're reassigning human personnel to ice world installations and polar operations. Early results are remarkable. Humans are requesting extension postings at facilities where other species can barely complete their minimum rotations. Zilax pulled up a classified report. We have a human engineer, Patricia Lee, who's been stationed on Glacian 9 for 8 months. She's single-handedly improved operational efficiency by 40% simply by being able to work extended shifts in environments that require other species to use cumbersome thermal suits. And the other human cadets? The 16 who were evaluated under the old protocols? Being reassessed now under species-appropriate standards. Early indications suggest we've been dramatically underutilizing their capabilities. Several are showing aptitudes in areas we previously classified them as deficient. Down in the training facility, Thompson had moved on to shelter construction, showing his students how to assess snow quality for igloo building. One of the Vexian cadets, who had nearly been expelled after failing 3 cold environment assessments, was excitedly packing snow blocks with newfound confidence. We've been training soldiers for 200 years, Zilax said. In that time, we've developed sophisticated doctrines, advanced technologies, and complex strategies. And now a human cadet has taught us that sometimes the most valuable weapon is knowing how to make fire with a stick and some cordage. Perhaps that's humanity's real gift to the Coalition, Kael'thas mused. Not their ability to survive the cold specifically, but their willingness to learn from their planet's harshest teachers and pass those lessons forward. They don't just adapt, they share adaptation. Agreed. Which is why I've approved funding for the new Environmental Adaptation Institute. Thompson will direct the Cold Weather Division once he completes his formal education. We're recruiting specialists from Earth for the other divisions: desert survival, jungle operations, high-altitude warfare, aquatic environments. Humans have specialists in all those areas. Apparently, yes. Thompson mentioned something called Navy SEALs and mountain rangers and desert reconnaissance. Earth's militaries have been training environmental specialists for centuries. We're essentially getting access to thousands of years of accumulated survival expertise. Kael'thas watched as Thompson's students successfully started their first fires, their excited chittering filling the training facility. I never thought I'd see the day when ancient survival techniques would revolutionize modern military doctrine. Neither did I, Zilax admitted. But then again, I never thought I'd see a cadet return from the frozen death trial wrapped in primitive furs, carrying fresh meat and complaining that he'd been a bit cold. Humans have a way of challenging our assumptions. That evening, Daniel Thompson returned to his quarters, exhausted but satisfied. His comm unit chimed with a message from home, his mother asking how his camping trip had gone. He smiled, composing a reply. "Hey, Mom. The survival training went well. Got to spend some time outdoors, did some hunting, made a fire. Nothing too exciting. The weather was a bit cold, but you know how that goes. Miss you. Love, Danny." He hit send, then grabbed another ration bar from his footlocker. Teaching all day worked up an appetite. His human metabolism demanded constant fuel, something his alien colleagues still found slightly horrifying. Let them be horrified, he thought. More food for him. A notification appeared on his display. New assignment details. Specialist Training Development, Cold Weather Operations Division. He'd be working with a team of xenobiologists, tactical analysts, and other human consultants to develop comprehensive cold environment protocols for endothermic species across the Coalition. Not bad for a cadet who just wanted to pass a survival test. His comm chimed again, this time from Commander Kael'thas. "Cadet Thompson, one final question for my report. The tunnel beast you hunted during the trial. How did you know you could eat it safely?" Thompson considered his response carefully, then typed, "I didn't, sir. But I figured if it could eat other things, I could probably eat it. Plus, I was getting really hungry. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut." A long pause, then. "That's either remarkably pragmatic or remarkably reckless, Cadet." "Yeah, that's pretty much humanity in a nutshell, sir. We make it up as we go and hope for the best. Seems to work out more often than not." Another pause. "Indeed it does, Cadet. Indeed it does. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning the Arctic Warfare Training Program." Thompson grinned, shut down his comm, and settled into his bunk. Outside his window, the stars glittered cold and distant. Somewhere out there were ice worlds, frozen moons, and polar installations that needed staffing. Somewhere out there, humans would thrive in places other species feared. Not because humans were invincible, not because they were fearless, but because tens of thousands of years ago, some stubborn ancestors had looked at a world covered in ice and said, "Yeah, we can make this work." And then they had. That, Thompson thought as sleep claimed him, was humanity's real superpower. Taking a hard look at the impossible and asking, but what if we tried anyway? The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you let that kind of thinking loose among the stars.